Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm Ken Svensson, producer of the Trusted Leader Show, and this episode is part 2 of David's interview with Ryan Leake. If you missed part 1, Ryan discussed why we should all be chasing failure, the 5 questions we should be asking when counting the cost of our dreams, and why our calendars will actually determine the trajectory of our lives. If you missed last week's episode, definitely go check it out. But let's rejoin them now for part 2 of David's interview with Ryan Leake. Enjoy the show.
Let's jump into this, the self-leadership questions, because you're asking a few questions, maybe not all 12 of them, but what are a few, in your learning from leading yourself and leading inspiring executives and really pro athletes or whatever, you got these 12 questions you're thinking about. And I think the interesting thing, we talked about this earlier, where, you learn in executive coaching, you told them something, they didn't do much. You asked the right question, that started to sometimes ignite a transformation. What are some of those questions on self-leadership that we can take a peek into?
Ooh, you're asking for a sneak preview.
Sneak peek. That's what we're about. Giving value here. This is why we do this.
Okay.
Free. This is the insider information without paying you right here.
Yeah, here we go. All right. So one of the questions of the 12 that I think everyone should be asking themselves to help themselves grow. The one that I think has resonated the most with clients and friends is this question: who knows who I really am? I call this the transparency question. The reason for this is we live in a society where we post our best, hide the rest. I know so many people who have gotten divorced over the last 2 years, and they still had to show up on Zoom and perform. And by the time they told their coworkers and colleagues and friends that they had gotten a divorce, the typical response that they get is, I never knew. I never knew that you were having issues. And so most people take their issues and they go into a corner and they just suffer alone, and nobody actually knows who they really are. People can know your name and never know your pain. And that can be, you can find yourself in a pretty unhealthy situation by doing that. And so I think the transparency question is absolutely massive, especially in a day and age where mental health is on the rise. And you don't want to be the one that is ostracized or pitied, or in a lot of conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're a minority of any kind, if you're the least of in a room, man, it can be a thing of going, I'm not going to tell anybody how I really feel, because I have more to lose. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to. And I just, I've got a really good friend who he suffers from panic attacks, can't get on a plane. He'd love to travel with me some, but he literally cannot. And he was telling me a story about one time he got on a plane and he had a panic attack and begged the captain and the stewardesses to open the gate. And they said, do you know how much money it will cost us to do that? And he's like, I can't breathe. And you just think about, man, how many people are going through so much, and you just never know who they really are. And so there is something about being authentic that is so good for us. And we just work in a society where that's not really applauded all that much. And having transparency, it's like, hey, we pay you to do a job, so do your job. And so I think the world could be a better place if we were all just a little bit more transparent. And I like to say, everybody doesn't need to know,
right?
But somebody needs to know who you really are. And so that's one of the questions that I think helps develop leaders and people in general.
Well, we see it all the time. We say this, if you're doing leadership alone, you're doing it wrong. You got to have team people. And by the way, you're absolutely right too, that you don't share this with everybody isn't you don't dump every bad thing or every struggle to everybody, but you have to have a place. You have to have a space. You have to have accountability or mastermind or close friends or mentors or whatever to do that. Let's talk about this, building trust, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, for our audience, all these trusted leaders. And, we know that one of the biggest studies out of Harvard shows diversity on its own. When we only focus on diversity, it tends to, in fact, in one study, one of the biggest of its kind of said it pits people against each other. But when you increase trust, you get immense benefits, as you know, out of diversity, equity, inclusion. Being a man of color, what can all of us learn about how we could build trust so that we enjoy the benefits of all people as we lead a more diverse environment than maybe we ever have?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I think authenticity is massive when it comes to building trust. Every minority of any kind has the same superpower. They can smell a fraud. They all have the same superpower. They can smell a fraud. They can always, let's just say I was speaking to a group of women, and I started speaking on behalf of women and their struggle. There'd be women in the audience going, huh? How do you can tell somebody that read some stats versus somebody that has actually sat with women and really understood their struggle. Does that make sense? And so I think sometimes what happens in the marketplace is we think, okay, well, one of the ways that we can, because here's a big fear that a lot of people have. Nobody wants to be considered a racist. Nobody wants to be considered. No one wants to be that person that isn't trusted. Nobody wants to be that. And so what happens is we try to put makeup on our website, and in full transparency, I used to help companies change their website, and they would do exactly what I told them to do. Their website changed, but they did not.
Hey everyone, a quick interruption here to share some big news. April 12th through the 14th, you are invited to the Trusted Leaders Summit. What makes a powerful event is bringing together amazing people in a way that actually makes an impact in the world. We're talking about a get-together that is packed with immediately useful content. You'll hear from top leaders like John Foley, the former lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels, Harvard professor Alison Shapira, and more incredible global experts. Get your tickets before they're gone at trustedleadersummit.com and join us in becoming even more trusted leaders. We can't wait to see you there.
So how do they change? How do we create change? We're talking about this all the time. How do we change the culture of organizations? How do we change thinking? How do we act? Change is not easy. Whether it's a personal habit. I used to do this habit training. We still have it as part of the curriculum. And I would ask people, how many of you have changed a big habit? Lost 20 or more pounds in your life? First of all, I asked, how many have wanted to ever change a habit? 100%. Yeah. How many ever changed a habit? Yeah. It was like 6% actually that changed a habit. Wow. So the ability to actually change, whether it's some of these systems we're talking about, racial inequity systems or other systems, what are some things you've seen, maybe even an individual coaching session that actually that started to see change?
I'm going to give you one way to change in this particular area of diversity and inclusion. Friendship. Not a program, not a certification. Reading a book can give you some information on some history, but friendship is by far the greatest tool for change. Because when you're friends with someone who is marginalized, when you're friends with someone who is ostracized, you can tell.
Love it.
You can tell. And so we've got Indian neighbors who have invited us to a festival of lights that is typically mostly Indian, but they've invited us as their friends. And so we're going as their friends. It's going to be very, very difficult for any of us to understand someone we've never sat with, that we've never broken bread with, that we've never had a meal with. And so I think one of the most endearing questions that we can be asking someone that is different than us in any way, shape, or form is, what's it like to be you? What's it like to be you in our organization? What's it like to be the only woman on the board? What's it like to be a person of color in our organization? What was onboarding like for you? Are there moments where you think, if you are honest, that you could lose your job? What is that? What is that like for you?
Let's jump in there really quick. Let's jump in there, because you're a leader in some of the spaces I've seen in quite white dominated arenas, in certain spaces at least that I know that you're in. What's it like to be you? Hey, you're feeding the questions, buddy.
I'm feeding the questions. I got to answer them, right? It is extremely difficult and extremely rewarding at the same time. But for me, it is there is a measurement when I walk in a room of going, how Black can I be? You think about sports that Black and white people love. And then you think about sports or subjects that are more white centric or more Black centric. And so as an NBA guy, I rarely talk about NBA stuff, because a lot of the spaces that I am entering into are more dominated by hunting, fishing, or football, of which those sports are not of interest to me, nor have I ever participated in those. And so what I look for is commonality, but there is an awareness for me of going, hey, don't talk about this simply because it won't relate to the audience. And so I think that there is a constant, and especially just traveling now, it gets harder, because you're going into a room and you're going, is this a mask room? Is this a non-mask room? Is this a vaccinated environment? Is it a non-vaccinated environment? Is this a polarizing environment? Is this a red state? Is this a blue state? Is this are you going to be chastised for not wearing a mask? Are you going to be chastised for wearing a mask? So all of those things, as a person that speaks to a lot of people, I do more reading of rooms than I do.
But to that point, on that exact point, I would say that is what we should all do, period. We should think of serving them. Like, I've seen speakers, and you have too, that are up there to serve themselves, to have their own therapy. My question always, every paragraph, when we teach our certified folks and coaches, it's like asking, what does this mean to them? So in one way, that's a great, there's stories I can't tell from, people know I grew up on the farm and all this, and I tell certain things that related to that, that people can relate to. And it turns out still in our country, about 80% of people are only a generation or two removed, some grandpa, at least a grandpa touch somehow. Many did, but many didn't. So I can't tell all those things, right? So I think thinking about the audience is key no matter what. But tell me one more level of what's for you as a person of color. And let's even go deeper, because I would assume it's easier almost to go and speak and leave. But what about a relationship? Because I know your past leader very well, who loved hunting and fishing, for example. But how in that, let's say you're having a leadership team meeting. You were, I don't know how lone of a voice or not, but what was difficult about that? So we can, as you know, peek behind and say, oh, this is different. This is something I don't get or understand. We can read white fragility and we can read all these things, as you said. We can even have friends, but you have a unique perspective as kind of an executive on the team.
Yeah, totally. You know, for me, I even have to think through, what do I wear? Because I'm doing, 15, 20 corporate gigs in November. Should I wear a navy blue blazer and a sky blue shirt to fit in? Or should I dress how I dress? I have both. So if I fit in, it's like, well, you kind of look like everybody else, except you just black.
So something here is, I think there's even another deeper level right here, because I can say, in who I am, I could wear cowboy boots and jeans and feel really comfortable. I could wear something else, but I'm going to actually think about the audience and wear the blue blazer and the blue shirt, because I want them just to quickly trust me, and I know that works. So why is it easier for me? There's something here that's a little unfair in that it's easier for me to just think about them and do it than it is fair for you. In something we need to understand. What is it?
You know, I think we're all trying to measure what will be accepted versus rejected. I'll give someone who's on the other side of the pendulum.
Thank you, by the way. This is great.
Yeah. You know, I love this conversation. So Eric Thomas, okay. Someone said #1 motivational speaker in the world. He is Black. He speaks in Jordan 11s, Jordan shorts, and his own branded t-shirt or sweatshirt if it's cold, and a hat. I'm speaking for one of the largest organizations in the world next week. There is no way I could wear Jordan 11s, Jordan shorts, and my own branded t-shirt. There is no way I could do what Eric Thomas does.
So let me ask you this. Why is that? Because there's no way I could either wear what I wear daily. So why? Tell me why that is, because I've seen people hire on personality. I know a guy that wears nothing I would wear that happens to be a white guy, but there's something here. Why is that you couldn't? Is it because of that audience, or is it because of who you are or who they hired you to be that you represented yourself as?
I think Eric has gotten to a level where he's just said, hey, I can just be myself, and I'm the best speaker in the world. You can get me or you can't, but I'm not changing for you,
But we're talking about authenticity. Why don't I can go in with what I'm wearing and feel authentic, but what about you? I mean,
I love clothes. Like what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah. You look great.
I couldn't see you wearing it.
Why is that?
It's
too cool for me, right?
Yeah, so again, I would wear this, but today I had to think, or I'm going to be on the Dallas news station, right? So later today I'm going to go film. So I'm thinking, okay, what's TV appropriate? And you don't want to be distracting, but you want to be sharp, and you want to, but you also don't want. I'm not a khaki pants, navy blue blazer person.
Yeah.
And so thinking, I'm not going to wear NBA sweats on TV today, but part of that is, you don't want to, I think for me, scare people, because in part of, I speak at, one of the largest churches in America that is, it has quite a few white people. And I would say over the last year and a half, what I've been able to do is earn their trust. And so part of that, if I, Nike'd up for a weekend, or I think there is a stigma that has come with people who aren't quote unquote professional. And so those are some hurdles and some stigmas that have come with the African-American community, that when I walk through the door, there is, I had one client, they were like, why are you always early? Like, you're way too early. And I'm like, well, there's a stigma that Black people are late. And I feel like I'm fixing it,
Mm-hmm.
or that I have to prove to you that that's not the case,
Yep.
And so there's this, even there's places, if I'm working with a professional sports team, I'll come suited up, and they're like, I mean, you're not overdressed, but like, you're like really, really like on right now. And I'm like, well, I almost feel like I have to represent a different brand of Black, if you will, because so many people have had either a negative experience with an African-American of sorts. And so there's people that I've recommended that are Black that I've gotten feedback from. And, there was just a litany of things that I feel like, I'm like, okay, those are things that coming in the door, I have to fix any potential wrongs, if you will. And that can be challenging, I think, for me.
That's a big weight to carry.
Yeah. And part of it is like, it's a weight to carry, but like I said, it's also very rewarding to really show up for my clients and just do a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about going, hey, I'm here to add value to your life. And it's not about me. And I want to help your company be better. I want to help you become better. And at the end, it's like, man, I just heard a really great message, or I just had a really great session with a guy who just so happens to be Black. But the paradigm of Black people are this way, I feel like I have an opportunity to change that, because I'm going, well, hey, that's actually not true. But I could argue with you and say, hey, here's why it's not true. Or I could just do the best that I possibly can and just do a good job. So I think that those are some, but and I have to say this, when there's a slide that I do whenever I do a diversity keynote. I call it the breadcrumb slide. And what I always do is I always follow the breadcrumbs as to how I got that opportunity. And on that breadcrumb slides it's a slide of white people who gave me access to opportunities that I wouldn't have had without them. And so part of what I like to communicate to people is going, hey, you might go, man, Ryan, see, you made it. Ryan, see, you done it. We don't even have a problem. Well, yes and no. What you don't see about the behind the scenes of my story is there is someone that has been unlocking doors for me all along. And so if there wasn't a Bob Merritt, if there wasn't a Jason Strand, you and me may not even be on this podcast right now. And so there was at one point, my parents could not afford to keep me in a private school in Rockford, Illinois, which is the second most dangerous city in America. So the trajectory of my life should have been completely different. But there was a 9th grade English teacher who said, hey, I see something in your boys. Me and my husband will pay for them to stay at this school. And that allowed me to meet this next person and this next person that led me to go to the college that I go to. And then I got connected to the president of that college, who made introductions for me to land my first job. And then and I can follow these breadcrumbs. And so the behind the scenes of my story is an incredible amount of white people who gave me opportunities that I was not ready for, but they took a chance on me anyways. And so what I encourage people to do is to say, hey, I think we all need someone in our life to take a chance on our potential. And I think we also need to be taking chances on other people for them to help them see their potential. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting in my seat right now if it wasn't for a lot of really great people that said, hey, we're going to give Ryan Leak a chance. And so that makes me want to give other people a chance. And so yes, it's challenging for me, but at the same time, the behind the scenes of it is what I really want people to see, of going, there might be a minority of some sort in your organization and going, yeah, they can rise up. But yeah, there's a lot of people who work just as hard as me that are Black or that are female or whatever. And the difference between me and them is not talent. It's opportunity and access to rooms and boardrooms and tables that they didn't get, that I got maybe at age 18, that I really didn't deserve to be in the room. but I was invited by somebody. Someone did me a favor. Someone just gave me access. I wouldn't be doing stuff with NBA teams if it wasn't for, I mean, literally, I could point to amazing white people that weren't even trying to be inclusive. They just said, hey, there's this kid who I think your players would relate to, and I think you should give them a chance. And they had no idea who I was, but they gave me an opportunity anyways. So things grew from there. I stewarded it well, yes, but that's what I hope people understand about, if you're in any majority category, hard work is not enough. You need somebody to give you an opportunity to be heard. And I think that's huge.
Lots here and lots more questions. I told you we weren't going to go too long, and what did we do? We're keeping going. We're going to just go on for another while. Hey, we got to land this plane, but boy, I hope we can have you back. I'd love to see you at our summit. Yeah. But a couple big things, and somebody told me this back in college. The greatest tool for change is friendship, and that is huge. And I think this question we need to ask as leaders: what's it like to be you? What's it like to be you here? What's it like to be you, especially as we're trying to make a higher trust, more inclusive environment on our teams? Lots more to say, lots more to think about. The book is Chasing Failure. There's a new one around the corner, so start reading Chasing Failure before we got to put the other one on your desk. The best place to find out more about Ryan Leak?
RyanLeak.com. RyanLeak.com. I'm Ryan Leak everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. There is another Ryan Leak. It's a professional soccer player, actually. Found that out. But apparently he did not get the URLs of everything else. So I beat him to the punch. So Ryan Leak everywhere, but RyanLeak.com is where you will find all of the info that you would need on me.
This has been a treat. We always end with this final question. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Who's a leader you trust and why?
I would say Jason Strand. Jason Strand, he is the senior pastor of a very large church, Eagle Brook Church. I'm sure a lot of your audience may be familiar with that church, and may not. But, the level of integrity that he operates with, and he's so unassuming. I think he has maybe one or two social media profiles that are not upkept at all. Most people in his position want to leverage it for more fame or more success, but he is, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. He is the most special, normal person and leader I've ever met.
Never heard that phrase yet, the most special, normal person. I'm going to touch base with Jason and let him know you said that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Like what encapsulates like his, he's just so down to earth. He's so, he's just trying to lead a great organization. He's not trying to, he's just laser focused on his task. He's not really thinking about much outside of that. And just his level of integrity of trying to add value to people's lives and ultimately their faith. And I just think it's really cool. So he's an easy one to trust.
Love it. Wow. Yeah. Ryan Leak, thank you. Thanks for this time together.
Hey, it was my pleasure.
Such a treat to connect. And thanks for sharing with this audience. More to come with Ryan Leak. Hey, that's been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.